Coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. It's Sunday in September, October, November. You're looking at NFL action. So thank you very much for listening. Here we go. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Google, Spotify, you name it. We're on most of them as well. So it's Sunday, week 3 of the National Football League. We had a full schedule for today. Of course, you get your Monday night game this week as well. But the 3 games we're going to look at up close and personal, kind of give you an idea as to which way the pros are going, which way the line movements are going. You got Washington against Buffalo, the New York Giants against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Bucks against the Rams. So those are the 3 games that are on tap for today. So that's the story, and we'll be looking close at them, give you an idea as to how well they are doing. Also, we're going to take a look and recap our dismal college day yesterday. Today was just one of those days, when you start getting over a certain percentage, you know that it's probably going to come back the other way. So yesterday we had 3 college plays. We had 3 losers. We'll go into those as well. We tell you when they're winning. We tell you when they're losing. Just again, like we say, we have no dog in the fight. We're just here to let you know which direction there's movement, which direction they are going. By they, we mean the professional bettors. And then, of course, we leave it up to you as to whether or not you want to go with them or you want to go against them or whatever you want to do. So, kind of happens. Sometimes you get 3 winners, sometimes you get 3 losers, and sometimes you kind of mix them up. But they usually stay somewhere around 60% in and around that area. So, that's the story with college football. We'll give you more on that as well. But as usual, the first thing we do is we're going to take a look at what happened yesterday as far as betting is concerned. And of course, there's baseball action going on yesterday, and of course, college football, which we will talk about as well. Meanwhile, like I said, in Major League Baseball, the Cardinals, a minus 145 on the money line. They beat the Cubs again, 8-5. That's 15 straight wins for the Cardinals. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that swagger zone theory as far as winning and losing favorites is concerned. Boy, if you would have been riding them Cardinals, say from game 5 on up, you've been doing pretty good. So anyway, they're their 15th straight win. They're playing again today. And we're going to kind of keep an eye on it to let you know that if and when they do lose, the following game is usually what we call the swagger theory. So we'll go into that when it does happen, if it does happen at all. The season may come to the end before this even ever comes true. Now, favorites went 10-5 with the biggest upset by the Diamondbacks once again, plus 220 against the Dodgers. The favorites lead 59.4% so far on the season. And the unders went 9-6 yesterday. So they kind of increased their little lead up to 50.2%. So the Cardinals on a big streak, 15 straight wins. We're keeping an eye on that so that if there is a loss in here somewhere, we'll let you know about it and we'll give you an opportunity to maybe go in and bet on against the Cardinals on whomever they are playing, okay? And so we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, in college football, wow, what a day yesterday was for the pros. Not doing too good at all. The favorites really came through at a time when the dogs should have been winning, things of that nature. Dogs have been winning where they should not have been winning. I'm beginning to understand more and more. And I'm starting to agree with my good friend, Mr. Tooley, over at VSIN Sports. He kind of thinks the same way I do. I think there's a lot more parity as far as football is concerned in college football. I think there's more parity in college football than there is in professional football, because these days we believe that betting the dog or pass is really the way to go. You have a bet on the dog, you don't bet the game at all. That's kind of our philosophy here at the Zone. Oregon State, a 10.5 point dog, upset USC 45-27. Number 3, Oregon, as a 30-point favorite, didn't cover, even though they did beat Arizona 41-29. Cal at 7.5 as a dog covered in that 31-24 overtime loss at Washington. Earlier in the games between the top 25 teams, number 12 Notre Dame, a 6.5 point dog, upset Wisconsin 41-13, and number 16 Arkansas, a 4.5 point dog, upset Texas A&M 20-10. Other upsets included North Carolina State. They were a 10.5 point dog over number 9 Clemson 27-21. Baylor was also a 7 point dog over Iowa State 31-29. And Georgia Tech at 14.5 as a dog over number 21 UNC 45-22. So you can see where the dogs had a really great day yesterday throughout most of the college situation, except in one situation, and that was the 3 games that we gave you yesterday in which direction the pros were going. The pros in yesterday's games were on Wisconsin against Notre Dame, and we know that was a loss. They were on Mississippi State against LSU, and they lost that game as well. And of course, they were on Texas A&M against Arkansas, who defeated them as well. So we had 3 plays yesterday, 3 plays, 3 losers. The day before that, we had we had 4 plays, 2 winners, 2 losers. So far, as far as college football betting is concerned, and going along with the pros, they had 19 plays so far, had 10 winners. They're at 52%. So you're just about a little over 52%. You're almost right at that break even point of 52.3%. 52.3 is the break even point if you're betting college or pro football or any sport that has to do with lines on favorites and underdogs, as opposed to money line. That's a totally different statistic altogether. So just to give you an idea, those are the 3 games yesterday. 3 games, 3 losers. But again, if they lose, we tell you. We're not here to say how smart they are, how smart we are, or whatever. We give you all the information, and then we leave it up to you to decide which way you want to go. But it looks more and more like there's more parity in college football than there is in pro football, because you're starting to see these dogs, these long dogs, okay, coming in and beating these teams that they should be losing to, according to the stats that they may be putting together. So keep that in mind. We'll be talking about that as the week goes along before we get into next week's college games on Friday night and into Saturday. So that's the story there. We're going to take our break. When we come back, we're going to be talking NFL. I got 3 games, like we said, that we're going to talk about. Washington against Buffalo, the Giants and Atlanta, and the Bucks and the Rams. Those are the 3 games. Take a close look at, let you know which way the lines are going in those games, which way the money is going, and which way the pros are going. So let's take that first break. And if you've listened to the show before, you know we take 3 breaks. Each one is 1 minute long. So we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. You're in the zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, right here on this Sunday morning anywhere in the country. So, whatever time zone you happen to be in, welcome on board. You're coming to you live on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Of course, we podcast on most of your major podcast platforms as well. So, now let's take a few minutes. Talk about some NFL action for today. We have three games we're going to talk about. So let's see how the money's flowing on these three particular games. At 1 o'clock, you got the Washington football team playing the Buffalo Bills. Now, after they lost their opening game, both these non conference teams came back with a big second week victory. Washington 1-1 straight up, but they're 0-2 against the spread. They snuck by the Giants 30-29 on Thursday Night Football, although they failed to cover because they were 4-point home favorites in that particular game. Meanwhile, the Bills, they're 1-1 straight up, but they're 1-1 against the spread. They crushed the Dolphins, literally just blew them away, 35-0, easily covered. They were 3.5-point road favorites in that game. So as we look at this game today, the line opened with Buffalo listed as a 9.5-point home favorite. Now, the public isn't scared off by that big number, and they're betting this team as much as they possibly can because they are the high flying Bills in their estimation. However, and there's always a however, despite all this action that we've seen going on to Buffalo, we've also seen the line drop from 9.5 down to 7. So what this means is there's steady pro money coming in, and it's called a reverse line movement on the road dog, the football team plus the points. The dogs with the line move in their favor are at 59% since last season. Okay. Dogs who fail to cover in their first two games have gone at 62% over the past 10 years. So that's a stat worth looking at. Washington also enjoys a great advantage. They last played on Thursday, while the Bills played on Sunday. Now, the pros, they're also leaning to the under. The total has dropped from 46.5 to 45.5. And of course, the weather 10 to 15 mile per hour winds at New Era Stadium. And that's how it looks to the pros. They like the Washington football team, the underdog in this game against the Buffalo Bills. General public, very strongly betting on the Buffalo Bills. Meanwhile, also at 1 o'clock, the Atlanta Falcons going down to New York to play the New York Giants. And both of these non divisional teams, well, right now, they're 0-2. They're both looking for their first win of the season. The Falcons are 0-2 straight up. They're 0-2 against the spread, and they just got destroyed by the Bucks 48-25. They didn't cover, even though they were 13-point road dogs in that game. Atlanta has now been outscored 80-31 in these first two games. Now, on the other hand, the Giants not doing as well either. They're 0-2 straight up, but they're at least 1-1 against the spread. They had a hard game on Thursday night, but lost to Washington 30-29. Although New York did manage to cover because they were 4-point road dogs in that Thursday night game. Now, this line opened with the Giants, a 3-point home favorite. Public is undecided. They don't know which bad team to back, and that's the way it is. They're both bad. Who do you bet on? Of course, the pros, even though you have two really terrible teams playing against each other, and it's one of those games like who cares who wins type of situation. But this is where they kind of find where they can get some quality and they can get some edge in the game. However, we've seen the Falcons get juiced up to minus 120 on the money line, and some shops have even dropped that line from 3 to 2.5. Now, what this means is that the pro money is backing Atlanta. Over the past 10 years, when two teams who are 0-2 and they're playing against each other in week 3, the underdog is at 63%. Also, teams with a 20-point or more blowout loss, like Atlanta, are roughly 54% against the spread following the games over the past 10 years. Now, short road dogs of 6 or less are 9-1 against the spread through 2 weeks this season. So that's kind of a lot of information we're throwing at you. But the one thing you want to keep in mind, the pros in this game are on the Atlanta Falcons over the New York Giants. So that's the story. The public is undecided. They don't know which one of these two bad teams to play on. However, we've seen the Falcons get juiced up to minus 120, and some shops have even dropped it to 2.5. This again shows that pro money is backing Atlanta in this particular game. And to recap the first game between Washington and Buffalo, the pros in this particular game are on Washington. The general public very strongly on the Buffalo Bills. Now we have one more game to look at. That's Tampa Bay against Los Angeles. And there have been some other line movements, especially as far as over/under numbers are concerned. We'll cover some of those games as well when we come back after our second break. So just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. And of course, we will be back into the zone, like we always say, in 1 minute. And here we go again. We're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live right here from the Mile High City in Denver, Colorado, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, and podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Spotify, Spreaker. We're there. You can catch us any time of the day or night. So we're talking about NFL football games and which direction the pros are leaning, in case you tuned in a little late. And we'll give you a quick rundown on the first two games we talked about. The Washington football team playing Buffalo up in Buffalo in that particular series. Buffalo Bills, big favorite of the general public. They're coming in very strongly betting that team. But the pros in this one, they love the Washington football team for so many reasons. But pros on Washington, general public on Buffalo. Meanwhile, the Falcons and the Giants in Giant Stadium, of course, that's Eli Manning will be inducted into having his number put aside. No one will be able to have it from now on. So it's a big emotional day for the Giants. So perhaps maybe they will pull one out for old Eli. But as far as the pros are concerned, they like the Atlanta Falcons in this game. So Atlanta against the Giants. Finally, at 4:25, the afternoon game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams. Wow, this should really be one heck of a game. It's a possible NFC Championship game, okay? This coming ahead. So this is like a little early. Got to get a little early introduction into what could be the NFC Championship game. It'll be by far the most popular and probably, without a doubt, the most heavily bet game of the week. The Bucks are 2-0 straight up. They're 1-1 against the spread. They're coming off that impressive win, shellacking the Falcons last week, 48-25. They easily covered in that game. They were 13-point home favorites. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Rams, they're 2-0 straight up. They're 1-1 against the spread. They just came by the Colts 27-24 in week 2, although they didn't cover as 4-point road favorites in that game. Now, the line in this game opened with Los Angeles, listed as a 1.5-point home favorite. The pros have pounced on Tom Brady and the Bucks as a short dog, steaming Tampa Bay from being a 1.5-point dog to being a 1.5-point favorite. So Tampa Bay matches the classic dog to favorite line move. And that's a system that the pros have leaned on for many years. So when you see it happening, when you see a team going from being an underdog, like the Tampa Bay team was today, on to becoming a favorite, that is one of the favorite notes, institutions, things that the pros look at as far as betting is concerned. But if you're late into the game, the Bucks still might be more appealing as a money line play. They were minus 120 instead of laying the points. So if you don't feel like laying the points, you can go in on the money line somewhere around minus 120. Now, we could also be looking at a high scoring game in this game, too. The total opened at a really high 54, and it's been bet up to 55.5. Both teams so far this season are 2-0 to the over for this season. So Tampa Bay against the Rams, the pros are on Tampa Bay. With their money, they swung the team over from being a 1.5-point underdog to becoming a 1.5-point favorite. So once again, just to review the 3 games we talked about today. Washington football team against Buffalo. General public really heavily in on the Buffalo Bills, and the pros like Washington. Atlanta Falcons against the Giants, a very emotional game over there in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, because Eli's number is going to be retired. There's going to be a lot of festivities at halftime, a lot of emotion. So maybe you might want to think about that as a possibility in determining which team you're going to bet on. But as far as the pros are concerned, they do like the Atlanta Falcons, because remember, they don't deal with emotions. They deal with numbers, which is really the way to be. Meanwhile, at 4:25, the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Rams. In this game, the pros are on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, that started out as a 1.5-point underdog, has now been moved up to being a 1.5-point favorite. Both teams are on the over, the high of 55.5. That's the over-under in this particular game. Meanwhile, in some other games going on today, the Cardinals, who were 7-point favorites, now are 7.5-point favorites against the Jaguars. And in some over and under rules, Ravens and the Lions game, the over went from 49 to 50.5. The Dolphins, who are 4.5-point dogs, dropped down to being a 3.5-point dog against the Raiders. The Seahawks and the Vikings, that underwent from 56 down to 54.5. And the Packers 49ers game, the over went from 48 to 50.5. So there's a few other games that are going on. that will be going on. There has been some line movement in those games. Just want to bring it to your attention as well. So we're going to take our final break. And when we do come back, we're going to take a look and see what Chris Andrews had to say about the three games we talked about today, kind of see how that line developed and any comment that he may have on those games as well. So let's get that third break out of the way. And as we always say, we'll be back in the zone in 1 minute. And here we go again. We're back again in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live right here, Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Yes, that's what they call it. Right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're coming to you live. We're here live every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. During the week, we're on at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, live. Of course, if you want to listen to the podcast, you can listen to that any time of the day or night. So we talked about three games on tap for today, which direction the pros are going. So now let's take a look and see what Chris Andrews, who's the head guy over there at Circus Sports, and gives us an idea as to how the books, how are the sports books, how did these numbers arrive on the three games we're talking about? See the thinking behind it. So this way you get an idea as to just about how it works. This way, you want to try to get in ahead of time. You want to try to get into these guys' heads so that when they get ready to make a move, you're ready to make that move with them as well. So, looking at that Washington Buffalo game, again, Buffalo being a 7-point favorite, the over under being 45 and a half. The pros took the dog aggressively when he opened it up with Washington as being a 9-point dog. Then they also came in when he dropped it down to 8.5. He dropped it down to 8, and they still kept coming in with their money. And then at 7.5, he kept coming in, kept dropping their money onto Washington. So he says, I'm all the way down to 7. He's starting to get money back on Buffalo at the 7, but he's still pretty heavy on Washington. So I'd like to take more on Buffalo before going to 7.5. He says, I can tell you, I've been getting a lot of money line parlays that include Buffalo to win the game straight up. And there was a lot of teaser play on the Bills when the bettors could cross both the 7 and the 3, those key numbers, 3, 7, and 10, from 8.5 down to 7.5. Now, a messy one to explain, but the public is rooting for Buffalo to win the game. The pros, they see value at Buffalo as being maybe a 2.5 or a 2-point favorite, or as a 1.5-point favorite if you're going to use them in a teaser. Okay, so the pros like Buffalo in the teaser, dropping it down to either 2.5, 2, or 1.5, again, depending where you got in. But Washington, at being a 7.5-point dog or better, is the straight bet. He's hoping for a one-sided result that misses that big middle. because there's a good possibility of that happening. His total opened at 46.5. I dropped the full point to 45.5 after the pro bets really came in on the under. So that's his story. That's how those numbers were developed. He started up as 9. He kept dropping it. The pros still kept coming in at 8.5, came in at 8, came in at 7.5. He finally dropped it down to 7. Now, Atlanta and the Giants. Giants 3-point favorite at home. The over-under in that game is 48. Now, this is one of those nobody knows they're playing game. That's what he calls it. Like Denver Jacksonville last week. He says, I do have some money on the Falcons at +3. Not nearly enough to move off that key number of 3. There has been some money line interest on Atlanta as well. So in the game between Atlanta and the Giants, he sees money coming in on Atlanta more so than on the Giants. And like you said, it's one of those nobody even knows who's playing type of game. It's just one of those games where who cares who wins or who loses. Now, finally, Tampa Bay against the Rams. Tampa Bay being a 1.5 point favorite. The over under way up there, over 55. He says, I opened them as a pick 'em. Now, other shops had opened the Rams being a 2 point favorite. They were hit with Tampa Bay money immediately. My power ratings had the Rams by 0.5 point. He says, I can't open a game at a half. Okay. Obviously, that can't happen. I read the market and went with Pick'em instead. Early money was on Tampa Bay, so I moved the Bucks up to being a 1 point favorite. Still at 1 and still getting bets on the Bucks as well. He says, I have a feeling I'll go higher on this one. My opening total of 54.5 has already been bet up to 55.5. The pros stopped at 55. The public may keep betting the over because this game will be previewed as a shootout all weekend long. And that's exactly what's happened. Any sports show you listen to, any newspapers that you read, or anything online, they're all saying this is going to be a big shootout between the Rams and the Bucks. So looking at it from that perspective, now you see how it all came about. Again, the early money was on Tampa, so he moved the Bucks to being a 1 point favorite. Okay, it's still at 1.5. So we'll see what happens with that. Keep an eye on that one. It's the afternoon games. Okay, keep that in mind. So once the first set of games in the early afternoon are done with, then we'll see how much money starts coming in on this game, which will no doubt be the heaviest bet game of the day, if not the heaviest bet game of the week. So that's the story for today. Once again, the 3 picks of the pros. Washington against Buffalo. They love Washington in that game. The Giants against Atlanta. They're on Atlanta. And the Bucks and the Rams. They like the Bucks in this game for sure. So that's the story for today. Once again, thanks for listening. It's Sunday. It's a great day. Get out there, have some fun with your friends, your family. Sit back and relax. Watch some good NFL games, especially that 4:30 Eastern Time game between the Bucks and the Rams. That should be a preview of possibly an NFC Championship playoff when that time comes later on in the season. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, Monday afternoon. 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms. So have a great Sunday. Enjoy it. Have some fun. And of course, I certainly hope if you're betting that you have a profitable Sunday as well. So until tomorrow at 1 p.m., I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Goodbye, everybody, and good luck.